National Signing Day 2020 has come and gone. As stated in previous videos, as predicted, UGA finishes with the #1 recruiting class. Not much of a surprise. Alabama had a chance to pass UGA only if they had landed Jackson, the defensive tackle, high-rated 4-star. Well, Bama did not land him. He ended up going to Texas A&M. And at that point, as soon as the news broke about him going to Texas A&M, it was essentially over at that point as far as Georgia locking up the #1 class. Now, there's a couple things about that #1 class that weren't as pretty as they were a week ago. The main thing that sticks out to me is the average player rating. A week ago, we had the highest average player rating by far. We were at 94.5 average. We finished somewhere in the 92s, which was not #1 in the country. So we went from being a full point ahead of anybody else, maybe even a point, a little more than a point, ahead of Alabama and Clemson and LSU and Ohio State, to we did okay, but we finished in the 92s. It's like 92.96, somewhere around there as far as our final average. Some people say if that's a big deal or not. It is what it is. Can't change it now. So the breakdown, as most people know, started the day off kind of with a dud. Kinney signed. Wasn't a big surprise. I mean, there was several people on recruiting boards and analysts and insiders saying that he was probably going to come to Georgia. But I mean, honestly, that was more so of a fact that he's from Georgia and we were the only school in the state that offered him a scholarship. He had a couple more offers, Iowa State, Syracuse, Temple. But we were the only school in Georgia to offer him a scholarship, and ultimately that's where he ended up signing. He was kind of more recruited as a defensive tackle, but then Matt Luke kind of took over the recruiting on Kinney. So there's definitely some speculation that he's probably going to get put on the offensive line for depth. We'll see. We'll see what happens with that. Big body, not going to knock the kid, but kind of a dud to start the day. The next two were really no surprises. Dejon Edwards was the next to sign. No drama there. Ladd McConkey followed. No drama there. I have previous videos of both of those players and my thoughts on both of those players. So if you want that opinion of those players, you can go back and watch those videos. After McConkey was Broderick Jones, which was ultimately our biggest, not even question mark, but definitely our biggest recruit of the day. I wasn't really concerned with anybody being able to flip Jones because it was really only between Georgia and Auburn, and the fact that he canceled his visit to Auburn last week pretty much solidified the fact that he was staying at UGA. So nothing changed there, but it was a definite relief when he put that Georgia hat on there was I was watching the live stream on that, and there was somebody else that came on stage before Broderick. Big guy. Had hair like Broderick. And so a lot of people thought it was him. And he committed to Georgia State and put on a Georgia State hat. And everybody was like, well, wait a minute. Did he mean Georgia? And he said Georgia State? Or it wasn't Broderick Jones. That was another player. So then Broderick Jones came on afterwards, and he had his hair braided. He didn't have it kind of froed out like he usually does, and put on the Georgia hat, and it was kind of a funny moment. But glad that he ended up signing with UGA. The next one was really the only flip of the class. A lot of people were projecting it, though. Duran Branch, he was committed to Ole Miss, but we were able to flip him. He was on campus January 24th, so not this last weekend, but the weekend before. He was in Athens. That kind of sealed the deal. I actually talked to Kirby on the phone last night, and I pleaded my case to him about why are we signing so many receivers? We need some defensive backs. He listened to me, obviously. No, seriously. I'm glad that we took another DB in this class. If he's a corner, or if he transitions to safety, he's got good size. He's 6'2", which is good. So we'll see what happens there. I'm glad that we did sign another DB. That was definitely a hole, I thought, with Ringo being the only other cornerback and Major Burns being the only safety. I thought we definitely needed to take another DB in this class, and we did. So mid-level 3-star recruit. I think he was like an 86 overall, somewhere in the 500s overall recruit. Not a bad pickup by any means. He could be a solid player at UGA. So if nothing else, he adds depth, which is never a bad thing. And then the last signee of the day was Cedric Van Pran. That one didn't really have much drama. There was freaking Florida fans saying that they were going to flip him. We'll talk about Florida in a minute. There was Florida fans saying that they were going to get him and talking a little trash. No, he was all dog. So ultimately he signed with UGA, and that was the last of the class. Again, no real surprises today other than Branch may have surprised a couple that didn't see this coming. If you are a member to some recruiting sites, you've heard this name for a couple weeks, and you knew that it was kind of a good possibility of happening. So happy with the class. Number 1 overall recruiting class again. Second time in 3 years. Second time since Kirby's been there. It's phenomenal the way that he is recruiting at the level that he is, but we need to finish the job. At this point, I'd rather have the 20th ranked recruiting class to win a national championship. So if we don't have all of the pieces in place now that every player at UGA has been recruited by Kirby Smart, and this is arguably the best 4 years of recruiting. It's probably not even arguably. It is the best 4 years of recruiting in the history of UGA. We have to win a national championship now. Immediately. There's going to be some backlash, real backlash, more than there already has been. So it it has to happen immediately. But going back to why I kind of chuckled at Florida, Florida had a pretty rough day. Started out yesterday, actually, before National Signing Day. They lost a tight end, I believe it was. He was a top 20 athlete. And he ended up picking App State or something over Florida. And then there was another player that ended up picking Tennessee over Florida. And so then Florida was going after, they thought that they were in the mix for 2 running backs. One from Colorado that was committed to Colorado. No, he wasn't interested. Signed with Colorado. The other was Gibbs, who's a Georgia boy, was committed to Georgia Tech. Dan Mullen tried hard to get him. Didn't happen. Gibbs ended up going to Georgia Tech, which is huge, by the way. I mean, Georgia Tech is getting an absolute stud at running back. Gibbs will be a beast. Would not be surprised in the least bit if he is the starter day one in Atlanta. But then Florida thought that they were for sure getting Devontae Williams, the safety out of Florida. It was between them and Miami. And I believe when Williams was on his visit, or just after his visit to Gainesville, he tweeted and told Georgia that he was canceling his visit. A lot of people are like, all right, he's locked in, he's definitely coming to Florida. Well, that didn't happen. He went to Miami. So, and if you paid attention to the recruiting boards today for Florida, I am not lying when I say they were, it was a circus. It was chaos. People were calling for coaches to be fired, for coordinators to be fired. I mean, Florida fans were absolutely losing their minds on these recruiting boards because, I mean, they were whiffing on player after player after player, like 5 in a row. They finally got that Princely, I think he's a defensive end, finally got him at like 3 o'clock. That was their only shining light of the day. So anytime I can poke at Florida, I'm going to take that opportunity, and today was one of those days. Go back and look at the boards that I'm talking about, the recruiting boards, and just read some of the comments. People just going absolutely insane. So, very good class for UGA, very good class for the SEC as a whole. 5 or 6 of the top 10 were from the SEC, including Tennessee. Congrats to Tennessee on sneaking into the top 10. So big day for UGA, the SEC as a whole when it comes to recruiting. That number 1 or number 2 running back that I said I wouldn't talk about and wouldn't mention his name anymore. Nothing happened with him today as kind of predicted. Again, he's just going to enroll somewhere, and that's what's going to happen. Nothing happened today with him. So next video I want to throw out there is not going to be UGA related. I want to kind of talk about the coaching carousel for this upcoming season. Not what's already happened, but who's on the hot seat, who will be on the hot seat if things don't go their way in the upcoming season. And one of them is from right here in Michigan, which is Jim Harbaugh. They had a very boring, abysmal day recruiting. The University of Michigan is one of the storied football programs in college football. and yet they did not manage to land a single top 100 recruit. USC, Southern Cal, who is ranked 54th in the nation right now with only 12 commits, has a top 100 player. Michigan has 0. They did not get a single top 100 player. They slid in the rankings today. They were in the top 10 coming into today. They slid back to 14th. There's some other stuff that could happen, that they could even drop even lower. They didn't flip anybody. There were no surprises for them in their class. And I think Jim Harbaugh's on the hot seat. But that's another video. That is all from National Signing Day 2020. Don't forget to tune in on Friday around 8 a.m. over on Uncle Lou's page. I will be a guest on his show around 8 a.m. on Friday. And I will post a link to that video after it is posted. Comments, questions, concerns. Tell me how big of an idiot I am. Let me hear it. Go Dogs. Have a good day.